This is the first full-scale biography of Michelle Obama, the First Lady. She's obviously a historic First Lady. You write in the book at one point that you write, "I wanted to know what Michelle set out to accomplish and why." What did Michelle set out to accomplish and why?
You know, it tracks back to who she was growing up and where she grew up. She grew up on the south side of Chicago, where she saw inequality all the time. She sees it now. And what she's trying to do, I think, in the White House is, as I write about it in the book, to unstack the deck just a little bit. If you think about her programs together as a piece, there's an element of sort of disadvantage, dealing with disadvantaged kids, disadvantaged adults, very much like what Barack Obama is doing today with My Brother's Keeper.
Methodologically and attitudinally, how did you decide you could write a book about someone so covered and overcovered and say new things?
You know, like so many people we cover, we think we know them, but in fact we know the largely glossy campaign version of them. We haven't gone so deep. We kind of think we know it all, and then we move on. And this was a great opportunity, especially in Chicago, where I'm based, to go back into her history, her parents' history, and to see that, in fact, before she got to the White House, not only was there Princeton and Harvard, which we know, she had a 20-year professional career with a very separate identity from Barack Obama.
One of the things you decided to do, and I think that is a great virtue of this book, is not to focus as much on her time in the White House, although there is reporting on that there, but a lot of the richest stuff in the book is before she gets to the White House. And you talk a lot over the course of writing about her life, about her being kind of torn between two worlds, both between the black world that she was from and the white world that she came to inhabit, and also two different classes, right. Black working class and the elite that she eventually joined. So talk about how those two tensions play out over her life and made her who she is today.
I think they were there pretty much as soon as she arrived at Princeton in 1981. She was a working class kid from the south side of Chicago. Chicago, when she was growing up, was still pretty darn segregated. It was before Harold Washington. And then when she went through Princeton and Harvard, got back to Chicago, she ended up walking in these different worlds. She spent 12 years, for example, at the University of Chicago, where she was trying to bridge this elite, largely white institution that had very tough, very negative relationships with the surrounding black communities, and her mission was to try to use the power that she had inside the institution to make things around in the surrounding neighborhoods just a little bit better, which I think is very much what she's trying to do now in the White House.
Obviously, meeting Barack Obama was a big turning point, probably easy to argue the turning point in her life. Pre-meeting Barack Obama, what's a turning point in her life that's significant?
I think it was probably when she got out of South Shore, when she got out of Chicago, when she got to the Ivy League. She talks a little bit about being lonely, feeling like an outsider, largely principally as an African-American woman, but also as a daughter of the working class. She gets to Princeton and she says she sees kids with BMWs. She said, "I didn't know adults with BMWs." I think that stretched her in both places, Harvard and Princeton.
There's been a persistent refrain throughout his political career among a lot of African Americans that he is sort of not black enough, or that he doesn't do enough for African American voters. They confronted that sort of directly in the Senate campaign when he ran in 2004, and she spoke up on his behalf and basically came out and said, "I'm as black as they come, he's married to me, he's black enough for you." Did she understand? I mean, that's a pretty hardball political thing. She's not a very political person, but that was playing racial politics in a very out front, kind of aggressive, bold way. Did she understand what she was doing as kind of as nakedly political as at least I interpret it?
I think she knew exactly what she was doing. And some of her strategists, as you all know, consider her to have possibly better political instincts than Barack Obama himself does. They had gone through the Bobby Rush campaign. You'll remember it was the congressional campaign where he lost to Bobby Rush by 30 points. Fast forward a few years, and people who are on the south side of Chicago, who are political, competing against Barack Obama, say, "Hey, he's a kid from Harvard. What does he know? He, worked as a community organizer and thinks he lived the civil rights era." Michelle Obama says, "Listen, I know what this man is about. I know what he's prepared to do. I know what he has done. Let's not play that card."
Lots of talk that the Obamas may not go back to Chicago when they're done at the White House. They may move to this city, Gotham City, the Big Apple city, never sleeps. Right. City so nice I named it twice. Just not asking you to predict or speculate whether they will, but if they moved here, what do you think that would say about where she is in relationship to the city in which she grew up and where they made their political names.
As you know, they've been telling their friends that they will move to New York after Sasha, their youngest daughter, finishes at Sidwell, France, assuming Sasha wants to stay there until she graduates. I think part of it is that Chicago's not big enough for them anymore. She thinks she can be a little bit more anonymous here. There's certainly plenty of work to do on both fronts in New York. That said, I think the fact that they're going to put the library, the presidential library in Chicago, the fact that her large family is still there, many of their closest friends are still there, suggests that they'll still stay tied to the city.
Kind of a blow to people who would think the two of them would want to go back to that city that nurtured them, right?
I think the blow would have been if they hadn't put the library there. I think that would have been that would have been seen as a betrayal.
Yeah. The book again is Michelle Obama: A Life, and our thanks to Peter Slevin.